Thanks for the introduction, Philip, and thank you all for attending this third of the day and final webinar today for how to keep your customers coming back. Thank you to everyone at Customer Focus for allowing me to share these thoughts and this research with you. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to ask a question during this, there is a box on the right-hand side. You can type a question into. I should get that. If for some reason I don't see it, I'm going to try and stick to the 30-minute slot here, then I will, with pleasure, email you later. If you're watching this back from SlideShare or you've been emailed the link as requested, and of course the questions won't work, but you can, with pleasure, email me, martin@artworktool.com, martin@artworktool.com, and I can get back to you thereafter. So again, thank you for attending. We've got attendees actually from 4 continents now, being the time of the day. So pleased to welcome people from all over the world. And without further ado, I'll get on with this. So basically, this is all about the psychology of why customers stay or go. And one of the challenges that we all have in business is keeping our customers. And if this was in a live environment, I would typically ask a couple of questions about customer experience. And really, there's a difference between what executives at companies think the experience they receive is excellent, and what we think as providers we think is excellent. And interestingly, 80% of executives think that we give great service, that the experience we provide to customers is excellent. And when you then do a similar survey and ask those same people, the actual people receiving the service, what do they think overall the experience they get is excellent, and they say it's 3%, and that's kind of a big number and a big difference. So we've set out to explore why some of that is and what's changed over the years, and specifically really in the markets that we all address, which is promotional products, signage, print, and you could say marketing services. One of the challenges is communication, is that the messaging that we're using, whether we're in social media, we're face-to-face, or we're talking on a webinar like this, it's sometimes difficult to get your message across. And I like this graphic because it kind of is the point that here's somebody talking, but clearly the other person just isn't listening, and therefore there's something going wrong somewhere, and that kind of communication gap is what challenges people later on to perhaps not feel as comfortable with one supplier versus another. And I guess that one of the kind of the brightest things I ever saw, and if I wish to have been have created something, it would have been this statement of there is no more B2P or B2C, it's all H2H. So business to business and business consumer for years has really been the divider between 2 areas of many companies, 2 strategies, 2 approaches. Some people now call it enterprise versus standard, but reality is, are you selling to businesses or are you selling to consumers? And a very smart person said, look, actually, what's the difference? Because when you go online to Expedia and you're booking a flight, whether you're booking that flight or hotel for business or for a holiday, the actual experience is exactly the same. I mean, you've got the same interface. They may ask you for CRM purposes, is it business or leisure? But actually, it's the same. When you buy anything online from Amazon or Office Depot or whatever it may be, there's no difference in experience between B2B and B2C. So getting down to the fact that all communication is human to human is really fundamental now, and particularly as we talk soon about the generation gap and millennials. And so on that subject, right now, for the first time ever, we have 3 generations in the workforce, and that's a result of lots of things. People needing to earn money for longer, people living longer, which is fabulous, and advancements in healthcare, and also the amount of young people that are joining the workforce and starting to shun the idea of maybe they want to go to college or university and have a ton of debt. And I believe I read a few days ago that within 5 or 7 years, we'll have 4 generations in the workforce. So I'm happy to admit that I'm 52, and therefore I'm kind of in between that Gen X and baby boomer area. And we talk a lot about, particularly in the promotional products sign and print space, about the people, the account managers doing the selling are baby boomers, but clearly the people doing the buying right now are on that right hand side, these iGen or Gen Z, or what we tend to call them, or I do, which is millennials. Um, and I speak from some position of knowledge because I have three of my own children, ranging from 25 down to 18, and they're clearly millennials. And I have three stepchildren ranging from 28 down to 19. And so that's six kids. I like to say four that are now off the payroll, if that's ever possible. But the four of them are all people that are in businesses now, that buy things, that buy things and have experiences where they're dealing in a different way to perhaps we dealt with when we were, or I was younger. I'm not assuming anybody else is my age. So again, this graphic is really interesting because it's showing that in business now we don't really know who we're talking to, and there is wildly different views on life. So I do have a daughter that's actually just turned 25, who works for one of the largest companies in the world, and of course very proud. But she's been online her whole time. I mean, she's never not had a phone, and she's never not had the internet. And so the way that millennials operate, and bearing in mind that so many of the people that we now provide services to are this age group in companies where they've gone as graduate programs, graduate recruitment onto these programs. They effectively are the buyer. And if I look at this, daughter of mine, I'm actually seeing two of my kids tonight. I live in Chicago, but I'm actually in London right now, and I'm having dinner with them tonight. But the whole arrangements have been done by text on WhatsApp, which is, "Hey, Dad, are you in London?" Then it's, "Great, are you free? Can we have dinner? Where should we go? What time?" At no point did anyone pick up the phone. And I guess what happens is that myself, as a father in this respect, I just respond to the fact that that's how it works for them because maybe they're at work or whatever. Whereas normally I would, pick up the phone. And customers are very similar. So this fact that millennials have been online their whole lives, their entire lives, is really interesting. But most of all, they've got these radically different expectations of service, of immediacy, of just about everything. There was a survey that we carried out that said that only 19% of people would take a sales call that were in a business. So 81% said, "No, we're not going to take a sales call by phone. We've got absolutely no interest." 89% said there's no way we would even see a salesperson. So really, again, and going back into kind of some of the traditional methods of selling and why things are changing, is that these people have these different expectations. They want to, get the subject dealt with, get on and move on to the next one because they, I don't know, busy, whatever the words are, impatient, but they're different. And why this is really important is that the cost of attracting new customers has become so expensive, more expensive than ever before, not helped by the fact that it's hard to get in front of people to show the differences and why they should buy off you, and why your personality and what you stand for is much better than somebody else. So retaining customers becomes paramount to every single business now, because it just costs too much to get new ones. It's not impossible to get new ones, but it's an expensive business driven by the cost of SEO and pay-per-click, etc. So this really, some of this is about how do we make sure that we retain customers. So I want to talk a little bit about cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is really, having opposing thoughts. It's kind of, in my mind, and it's simplified and not correct, but I look at it kind of the angel and devil on my shoulders when I want to make a decision. And I don't always make great decisions, but it's a bit like having opposing thoughts. Like, I like smoking, but I know it's bad for me. And we're wired as human beings to reduce the conflict. So I can either quit the smoking, or decide that I'm not really at risk, because I once saw a documentary where this woman, which I did see, lived to 105 by having a cigarette every few hours and a whiskey at night. Well, that's fabulous, and that would be a great way of convincing yourself that actually smoking isn't bad for you. But in a business scenario, what that does really is, say, okay, well, I'm really happy with the supplier I've got, because, and even though there may be some weaknesses there, and I convince myself that it's easier to deal with the supplier I've got, the provider I've got, rather than change. But actually, that really happens when something goes wrong after a purchasing decision. And purchase decision can be a number of things. It can be someone's placed an order with you and then finds it's online cheaper or online different, or they don't like the way you follow up and they're uncomfortable with the information, but lots of things. And I use a kind of a different analogy, which is I have a builder, a contractor, I should say, a large American audience here. I have a contractor called Tony, and Tony is without doubt the worst contractor in the world. It's fantastic how bad he is. And he's been my loyal contractor now for 20 years. And I know it sounds crazy, but, I manage this kind of disconnect, this cognitive dissonance by saying, you know what, okay, he's terrible, but it's actually easy for me because he knows the kids and he knows where the keys are and he knows the house. And if I need him to fix something, he knows what to do. And whilst I'm going to need to call him back 3 times because he never does it right first time, it's actually easier than getting somebody else. And that's how for many years, or for certainly the last 19 and a half years, I've kind of balanced in my mind, why I still use Tony. But what actually happens is eventually when you realize that, either smoking is bad for you or that, you just can't cope with Tony anymore, you become disloyal. Customers become disloyal. They shop around and they trivialize. And so, if Tony, and I don't wish to pick on him, but if he'd been the perfect contractor for the last, 20 years almost, then, when I looked at a mains outlet or a socket he'd put in, and it was like a millimeter not straight, I probably wouldn't care. I'd probably just actually move it myself. But, on top of the other 20 things, it gets frustrating. And a nice example of this is, I'm sure many of you or all of us have that struggle of going through airports and the security, then the taxi line, and we finally get to the hotel. And, what we really would like is just to get to our room, kick off our shoes, and get the internet connected, which is kind of my thing. I always like to know my internet's connected. Well, if you arrive at the hotel and there's a long line at check-in, and then 20 minutes later, you finally get to the desk and they're faffing around and can't find your thing, and then you finally get your key and you wait in the elevator and the elevator's slow, and then you get to the 18th floor and you got to walk all the way to the end and you get in your room. By that time, you kind of, me typically, I'm kind of really aggravated because it's taken 45 minutes longer than I expected. And now I'm into trivialization. Now anything that goes wrong is going to be the biggest thing in the world. And you walk in the bathroom, you see there's like a small mark in the sink. Well, rather than doing what we would do 99.9% of the time, which is run the water, move the mark and get on with it, back to kick the shoes off of the internet. Now it's a major hygiene issue and you call the manager and I want to change rooms. But the reality is that's all because a number of points just kind of, got you out of balance in your mind of, the good of the fact that I'm quite loyal to Marriott hotels and the bad of the fact that on this day I just finally got a bit fed up. So the challenge with all of this is that dissatisfied consumers talk. I mean, they tell between 9 and 15 people. I guess I'm talking now to 150, 60 people live. So I'm in that 13% tell more than 20. I mean, I've just, luckily you don't know who Tony is, so you can't harm him. But, I'm happy to share with you my experiences. And that really is a challenge. And that's got more difficult and more prevalent with the immediacy of millennials and social media. I've seen it where people are tweeting in meetings if they're happy or not. And what a lot of this comes down to really is this kind of trust and presenting, a brand or a message or an overall feeling of trust to your customers, so that they don't feel in any way that they're getting out of balance on the cognitive dissonance. And trust, one thing is plausibility. This is a real advert from a long time ago, but Guinness doesn't give you strength. I mean, it just doesn't. I quite like Guinness as it happens, but it doesn't make me strong. It actually makes me fall asleep. And so it's just not plausible. And 25 years ago, Marlboro had adverts that said, if you've got a cold, you should smoke. It's going to cure it. And that, I guess, was slightly, off reasonable. So trust is being plausible, and in talking to your customers and presenting information on your websites and on your communications, you've got to be plausible. But you've also got to be credible. One trick of a tiny belly. This is my favorite. I mean, really, I wish I would be taking the one-word old tip, but it just isn't. It isn't credible. And again, we can all think of websites we've been to and seen examples where actually people are pushing the idea of plausible and credible. And so protecting your own brand is about trust. And, The challenge with customers and trust is there's no middle ground. And actually, fact, there's no middle ground with trust in many things. We've all had unfortunate circumstances where we've been told something that was economical with the truth, maybe by a supplier or an employee or worse, and you never then forget that. It's always there in the background. So if you get found out not being trustworthy with a customer, it lasts forever. And there's a very quick story, which is in the promotional product industry, a large order that was running late, and the distributor didn't really know what to say because the excuses were running out. It was something that was imported, and eventually came up with a great idea to say that there'd been a fire on the cargo ship, and they were still hoping to get the goods off, but it was going to be delayed while they removed all the other containers, whatever. Which sounded credible, and up until the customer said, "Okay, well, that's really interesting, but I've got a boss who's really upset with me, so I need to know the name of the ship and the location." And so this is where it went down a path of inevitability, where the person in the end gets the name of the ship, but Googles it and see it sat there in Barcelona Harbour, shining and unburnt. And so the trust was gone. And really, what might have been a better thing was honesty. And so this is what makes customers then say, "Okay, well, look, I've been happy with everything you've done, but finally, I can't trust you, and therefore I'm going to go and look around." But the good news in a way is that, our services, 60% of consumers will pay more for a better experience. And I think we're probably all, I'm certainly like that. I pay more, I wouldn't say how much more, but for a better airline or a better hotel, or a better restaurant. I pay more for things. I definitely pay more for my broadband in the office or at home. I pay more for my mobile phone because it's important to me. So I do pay more. But 86% of those people will break ties after a bad experience. And what's interesting about that is what we're saying is we're prepared to pay more, but then please don't let me down. I mean, I'm paying you a premium to get great, but if you let me down, I'm out of here. And again, this is a kind of a real change over years, that people are saying, "Yeah, I'll pay you more." And a question came in just now, which was, in that case, how can I compete if I'm not the cheapest? And then there's another question here: do I need a real website? And those are two kind of related ones, because right now, particularly in promotional products and signage and print, you've got the likes of people like Vistaprint that are out there with these great websites. But what's really interesting is that their pricing definitely isn't the lowest. What they also don't have is an engaging customer service. So the very quick answer is, do I need a real website? Is absolutely yes. If you don't have a transactional website in these spaces now, and transactional means somebody out of hours can go on there, find what they want, choose it, design it, do whatever they want, put the artwork on and buy it and check out and get an email saying this will be delivered in X days, then you probably are behind the game. And that's absolutely fundamental in every space. And it's a little bit like you won't, if you're going online to Expedia or Trivago or hotels.com, if you got to the end and it said, "Well, thank you for your inquiry, I'm going to call you back within 3 days to confirm your hotel," you're probably going to go somewhere else. And that's many websites right now. But the research says, yes, you can compete if you're not the cheapest, because people will pay more for a better experience. There's no question. And that's really good news. Cognitive dissonance works really well with brands, and some brands do an amazing job. Hallmark is just one that I've chosen. These ones here are kind of more US centric brands. So apologies to the people that are just listening now from Australasia and Europe. But Hallmark is a well-known global brand, and basically it says to me that they always deliver me a nice card, and typically I'm going in there for a happy Mother's Day, happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy Valentine's, whatever it may be, and they associate themselves with a good quality product that doesn't have typos in it, that's well presented, and definitely isn't the cheapest. I mean, who knew you'd pay $7 for a piece of card, or that I would? So really interesting Hallmark. An incredible one really is Army Be All You Can Be, because again I'm a Brit that now lives in the US, and I've grown over the last 20 years of working in the US to have this incredible respect for the armed forces. And like many people listening, if I'm in a Starbucks or a queue or a Burger King queue, assuming my wife isn't watching, I'm in Burger King, I will, and I have somebody from the services ahead or behind me, I will always, like many of you, say, can I get that? And thank them for their service. And so really, Army Be All You Can Be has helped not only people be incentivized to want to be part of such an amazing organization, but also us, the public that are benefiting from that fabulous protection, are respectful. And that's how, a brand is incredible. And Nike is a great example. Nike recently, as I said, I live in Chicago, and a few months back we had the Chicago Marathon. And of course, I didn't run it, but afterwards I did take a walk down Michigan Avenue. And outside the Nike store, they had people ringing bells every time somebody had run the marathon and had achieved that incredible thing. And then they turned the ground floor of the store into a refreshment center and first aid center and anything you might need, whether you're wearing Nike or Reebok or Adidas or any other brand. And really what they were saying is, we embrace sport, we embrace and celebrate what you've done. And it made me feel good about Nike. And I guess if I was going to buy some running shoes the next day, I probably would have remembered that and gone and bought Nikes to add to the other 4 pairs that I don't actually use. And a really interesting part of our research was that often customer loyalty is increased after a problem's been solved. And we've all had it where either a customer or prospective customer has called you and said, hey, I've been let down, can you help me? And if you do, you've probably got a customer for life. But also even where you called a customer and said, look, I'm going to be honest, we've got a problem here. You're not going to get this. It's not going to happen. But this is what I'm doing for you. This is what I'm doing to fix it. I know it's not ideal, it's what I'm doing to fix it. And the research says that the loyalty that is created from that proactive service is immense. And so it's why we say problems, opportunities in disguise. And another good point about talking to customers and explaining why service is more important than price, or as important as price, is a good example is the best sermon. Giving examples of what you've done, how you've done it, how you've helped somebody, helps people in their minds to balance, okay, well, he's not perfect or she's not perfect in everything. We're back to cognitive dissonance. And yeah, maybe I want to shop around, but I don't need to, because I remember that when something went wrong, they were the great person to get me out of it. And a lot of all of this now, and particularly with the millennials we talked about, and in fact, they've got such a wide range of people in the workforce, is what do you know about your customer just after one purchase? And, what this graphic is saying is that, we're kind of almost forcing the customer to act differently around us because, they don't think the real me. I mean, they're not sure you know them. And understanding what your customer is and targeting information to them that's relevant to them is just so important. And I'm going to give you an example, actually, of something completely off topic, but it's an interesting one. And we're all a little bit paranoid about how our personal information is used. I mean, I 18 months ago had that unfortunate, painful experience of having my identity stolen. And whilst, yeah, I got all the money back and whatever, it was just the biggest pain ever. It just became a project on its own to endlessly fill in these affidavits and forms and God knows what. And you kind of, if anyone's had that, I have every sympathy with you. And so we've all come a little bit, we hear about data breaches at Target or wherever it may be. We've all become a little bit concerned about putting information in, but people will put information in if they think it's going to help them. How is it going to benefit the customer? So my example is Doggy Loot, and Doggy Loot's an amazing business because they use personal information to increase responses, by 750%. I mean, it's kind of amazing. But how they start is, what is your dog? Is it small, medium, and large? And that's a really clever and easy way in because I'm going to click that because it's a pretty easy thing. I'm kind of intrigued what it is. So I've got large dog. And then it drags me a bit further. Okay, we'll click sign up with Facebook, which is great. One click and I'm in. Or add my email address. And so I've gone this far, so what the heck? So I might as well add the dog's name, Max, and the breed and the size and gender and birthday. So if you think about it, they've just collected everything about, what we all probably spend more money on than we should. And what that does is it enables them to say, okay, well, if I'm going to send an offer to Martin, I might as well make it correct. So they only send me large dog deals. Now, when the weekly or daily, whatever it is, email comes in from Dogilute, it's absolutely relevant. And as a result, their open rate is more than 10%. Now, to benchmark that, the true open rate of most emails campaigns that are going out there is less than 0.2%. You might see figures that say higher than that, but if you Google it, you'll see that it's because mobile devices, which of course is so much of what we all use, don't differentiate between that little pixel that tells the system it's been open. It actually hasn't been opened. You've deleted it, but it's because it's displayed on screen for a nanosecond. It counts as an open. But the true open rates of emails is 0.2%. And in some campaigns, the number's so small, they're saying it's a complete waste of time. But what's interesting is they've got this 10.2% open rate, but then the click-through rate, which is a really important one, is yes, I do want a pack of 4 3-foot duck chews, is 4 times the average. And that's an incredible thing. And the most amazing statistic is that they get 13% of their daily total revenue from these offers. Now, can you imagine if you sent out email, a targeted email, and you got 13% of your orders online a few minutes later? That's effectively what's happening with Dogiloo. And how they're doing all that is by using connected data. They're not asking people to keep telling them the same information over and over again. And their data, whether it's in store, it's by email, it's by website, by mail order, it's all in the same place. Enable them to serve customers as they wish to be served, no matter how. And there's two parts, and I'm just conscious of the time for everyone. There's 2 parts to that: the CRM, customer relationship management, and targeted marketing. And CRM, I mean, it's a great title, and it's a wonderful term, but it just means remember your customers. And for me, when I was had the fabulous time of being out there, truly enjoying life, of getting out there, seeing customers, I carried my deck of cards with me. These were kind of postcard-sized things, and I had the customer's name on the left and the phone number on the right, and I would jot down little stuff, what they ordered, and I even had little bits of stuff about, their family, because I'm always terrible with names. Do they don't have kids? Do they play golf? That kind of stuff. And that was a CRM. It just wasn't really indexable other than those flicking through it on the Rolodex. That's what it was. So before I went into a customer, I would take a quick scan of the card, and away I went. I went in, and when I came out, I would scribble some more notes in the car on the card. And now, of course, it's so much easier with a plethora of solutions and services you can use. But what CRM does, or remembering your customers does, is it identifies opportunities. You can kind of segment your customers, and effectively it's a link to all your sales channels. So the big beauty now is that, if somebody took an order on the phone while I was out, in the car, they couldn't update my card. Well, of course, now they can update the customer's one card. On the database, and it's fabulous. You've really got an amazing opportunity. So whatever business management system you use, and again, there's lots out there. I'm not recommending any particular one. All I'd say is getting your data in there helps you serve your customers better. The good stuff is that if you kind of follow this idea, you're going to increase revenue by 41% per salesperson. These are proven stats, and that's a kind of a wow. That basically says you can increase profitability, 27% better customer retention, and of course the maths kind of works perfectly, which is if you retain your customers longer, you're not having to go out there with that 5 times the cost of trying to get new ones, and therefore your sales and marketing costs are going to come down by 23%. And the good thing about it is it just keeps going, and it's proven to just keep going. If you get it right, it just keeps going, and eventually your sales and marketing costs come right down. Being targeted is really clear. Where we're going to aim. What are we going for? We're going to aim high here, and we're going to make sure that we get into a market that's got opportunities. And this kind of graphic just say, look, let's just aim, because if you aim correctly and focus, the better you're going to do. Which really means whatever it is you're selling, and whatever the niche is all you're selling into, it just makes sense to focus on those, because you can do a better job, and customers can see you as being more knowledgeable and feel more comfortable about it. We've got an interesting thing right now where emails. I mentioned earlier that some of the open rates are minuscule and almost zero, but there is some kind of good news, which is that a triggered email message gets 109% higher click through. The click through being the real important one, rather than a business as usual message. And really what that means is if somebody's been on your website, they've made an inquiry or asked for a quote or placed an order, the triggered email will get looked at because it's actually really in response to an action. One of the, I don't have the slide here, but a very interesting statistic that we found was that if somebody completes a form on your website, after 5 minutes, there's a 95% less chance that they are going to buy something from you. Unless you respond within 5 minutes, they've moved on. So your chances go to almost zero if you don't respond within 5 minutes. And why is that? I did a little bit more research. Why is that? Well, I went back to, some of our team went back to what they do, and they say, okay, well, if I'm on a website now and I'm looking for a flight or a hotel or even to buy some T-shirts, I'm doing it then, I need it then, and so I ask the question then. And if I don't get an answer by the time I've gone onto my other email, well, I'm going to go and find somebody else. And some of our research has shown that a number of people are not even responding within 2 or 3 days. And some people think that 2 hours is acceptable. Well, the answer is, if it's not in 3 to 5 minutes, it's probably been a lost opportunity. But if you are going to send emails, again, a little bit of segmentation. It's worthwhile trying to get those out when they're going to be, customers are going to be receptive to those. And that segments really between people who are really busy during the day and people who are perhaps a little bit more leisurely. So senior managers, for whatever reason, C-level people tend to look at these things maybe on a journey into work or certainly before 8 in the morning and probably after 6, because during the day their calendars are just jam-packed. Different to that, somebody who's kind of mid-level is going to say, well, okay, well, I don't answer these things between 9 and 5. So send it me then, because that's when I work. I work between 9 and 5. I don't work outside that. So I'll look at it then, but I don't want to read something at lunchtime because that's when I'm looking at my Facebook. And so there's lots of research you can find out there about how timing your emails, and it's certainly worth doing. But a thing to be careful of is that making sure that people don't unsubscribe, because with the current spam acts, once somebody unsubscribes from your list, they're gone forever. If you send them too much email, and if you send them irrelevant email like us all, we eventually go, you know what, I'm going to unsubscribe. So that's a key thing is keep it relevant. Once they've said no, then you've lost them forever as a communication method. So what all this kind of summarizes into is transforming your customers into fans. If you can make people talk about you in a positive way, and if somebody calls me and says, hey, what's a great restaurant in Chicago, or who's a wonderful cruise consultant, or who's a fantastic photographer, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say, hey, this is the best one, I wouldn't use anybody else, and whatever. I'm a fan of those people. And so to do that, you need to be able to ask for feedback and get it onto your website. Very important that your website has regular new content. Google, or certainly all the search engines, are looking for relevance and for new, unique content. So adding feedback is a great thing for your website and will help your SEO, your organic SEO, rather than paid. Giving people incentives to refer you to others is a great thing. Those of you who are familiar with Uber around the world, Uber, the ride-sharing or taxi service, is fantastic, because I once a week get an email from them saying, recommend us to your friends and we'll give you both $10 off your next ride. Well, you know what? I recommend it definitely, because my friend gets $10 and I get $10. Why wouldn't I want a free ride? And so that's a great incentive. And engaging people via social media, you've got to gather their likes. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just every day send out an offer that says baseball caps, $18 on a C, because that just isn't going to work anymore. It's engaging content that people like what you're saying, rather than just really in your face selling. But all of things go to kind of get that cognitive dissonance in the right balance. Most of all, you've got to deliver exceptional products and services. There is unfortunately, no middle ground on that. If you deliver a great product and services, then everything else actually falls into place beautifully, and you've got this great lifetime value of the customer. So that brings us to the end of this. I am with Artworktool as a company, and I was asked by the customer focus team to do something nice for everybody. So Artworktool, in a 2-second thing, is a place you can go and create, share, and store artwork. So if you've got a logo of a customer, you can upload it there, but you can then change the size and you can add some extra text to it, and it basically saves you the need to outsource it or go to India, whatever it may be that you're doing for creation of artwork. And it's very simple to use. It launches in 2 or 3 weeks. the team at Customer Focus have asked that if anybody wants to just go ahead, artworktool.com, click request invite. All you do is add your email address. That's all it is. When we go live, you'll get a voucher that will give you a 30% discount off any of the kind of most of it's free, by the way, but there's some parts of it that kind of premium services that you pay a little bit for, and you'll get a 30% discount for a whole year. So probably worth doing. So I'd just like to close with, thank you to my hosts at Customer Focus. Thank you to everybody from around the world that's listened. More than delighted to hear from you, Martin at artworktool.com. You can find me on LinkedIn or connect with me on Twitter. And again, thank you very much for attending.